Hello, and Ray in Florida, Congresswoman Laura Lee. She's a member of the House Judiciary, Homeland Security, and Administration Committee. She's also on the Trump Task Force. And Congresswoman, I just want to first get your reaction and give us an update on what is happening in your area in Florida.
What you were just seeing is a really important thing to understand about Milton. This was not a storm that just affected the coastal communities. It has been absolutely devastating to many of our inland communities, including mine, because of tornado activity and also.
Listen up. Here is how I get car insurance for just $36 for 6 months for my Tesla. I was paying $213 per month. Can you believe it? I had a $500 deductible for both comprehensive and collision. This is for my 2022 Tesla Model Y. You can see I was getting ripped off paying $42 per month in just fees alone. But now with Blue Jet policy, I only pay $36 per month and get this zero fees. You can see it's the exact same policy, $500 for both comprehensive and collision. The best part is how much money I'm saving every month. I am saving over $250.
Beyond the manipulation of elections, democracy is often upheld by deeply flawed systems of representation. In most democracies, elected officials do not truly represent their constituents' needs and desires. Instead, they act as intermediaries between the people and the powerful corporations and institutions that fund their campaigns. Laws are passed, not because they benefit the people, but because they protect the interests of the wealthy. Take, for example, the U.S. tax system. Despite calls for tax reforms that benefit the middle and lower classes, wealthy individuals and corporations continue to receive tax breaks, loopholes, and subsidies, all thanks to their cozy relationships with elected officials. Even in countries that claim to have direct representation, like Switzerland with its frequent referenda, voter turnout is often dismally low, and the issues on the table are shaped by media narratives controlled by the elite. The common people may be allowed to vote on key issues, but they're voting within a framework built by the rich and powerful. In essence, they are choosing from options that have already been vetted and approved by those at the top. If democracy is a system designed to keep the people in line, then who's calling the shots? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Let's be blunt. It's not the politicians. The real power in any modern democracy lies in the control of the money supply. And in the United States and many other countries, that control is in the hands of central banks like the Federal Reserve. But here's something that might shock you. The Federal Reserve isn't part of the government. It's a private entity, run by a small group of elites who have the power to control the entire economy without any direct accountability to the public. Established in 1913, the Federal Reserve was created after a secretive meeting between some of the wealthiest men in America on Jekyll Island. Their goal? To create a banking system that would allow them to control the money supply and manipulate the economy for their benefit. By controlling interest rates, inflation, and the availability of credit, the Federal Reserve has more influence over the everyday lives of Americans than any elected official. When the Fed decides to raise interest rates, borrowing becomes more expensive, which affects everything from housing prices to job creation. When it prints more money, inflation rises, which erodes the purchasing power of ordinary citizens. Yet these decisions are made behind closed doors, with little input from the public. The Fed is an unelected body that holds immense power over the economy, and by extension, over the lives of millions of people. Think about it. Who benefits when the Fed prints money?
You need to get a book that details how the Federal Reserve Bank came into
existence. Yeah, you need to get the book. How they came into existence. Because the fucking shame that we allowing a few motherfuckers to fuck us. Shit don't make no fucking sense.
The police that print your money, that's the real power. They got us killing each other over this. Selling our future over this.
It's not the average worker. It's the banks, the corporations, and the investors who see their assets inflate in value, while the middle class struggles to keep up with rising costs. In fact, The Federal Reserve's actions often lead to economic bubbles, such as the housing bubble that triggered the 2008 financial crisis.
And we bailed the housing bubble.
It's the working class people who lose their jobs, their homes, and their savings, while the wealthy are bailed out by the government. The relationship between the Federal Reserve and democracy is one of the greatest deceptions of our time. We are told that we live in a system where the people have power, but in reality, our economic future is dictated by an institution that operates in secrecy and serves the interests of the financial elite. Democracy becomes a facade when the true levers of power are controlled by unelected, unaccountable institutions like the Fed. If the Federal Reserve holds such immense power over our economy and democracy, how is this tied to the larger history of global control? Slavery, as most people think of it, ended in the 19th century. But the truth is, slavery has evolved.
No.
Physical chains may have been broken, but mental and financial chains
More
remain.
now.
Debt, economic dependency, and systemic inequality are the new shackles that bind millions of people worldwide. To understand this concept, we need to recognize the parallels between the transatlantic slave trade and today's financial system. In the past, people were physically bound and forced to work for their masters, enriching the elite class while the slaves lived in abject poverty. Today, many people are bound by debt, working endlessly to pay off loans, mortgages, and credit cards, while the financial institutions that created these debts grow wealthier. Consider student loans as a modern example. In countries like the United States, students are told that a college education is the key to success. But in reality, many graduates leave school with tens of thousands of dollars in debt, only to find that the job market doesn't offer the opportunities they were promised. They spend the next several decades working to pay off that debt, all the while accumulating interest. The system is designed to keep them in perpetual financial bondage. This system of financial enslavement has its roots in the same forces that profited from the transatlantic slave trade. In the 18th and 19th centuries, European and American financiers played a significant role in funding and organizing the slave trade. Banks and insurance companies in cities like London, Liverpool, and New York grew rich by insuring slave ships, financing plantation owners, and investing in the infrastructure that made the trade possible.
That's the way America sees herself. She's destroyed nations, but no nation has bombed her.
You should totally come over and
Not
try it out.
one of America's cities
We'll
has
definitely
suffered
write
what
about
America
it.
has put on cities of nations around this world.
Wow.
You that visit America, you can climb from
Diamond
the
League.
east
We're
coast to the
trending.
west coast.
We are
You see an
trending.
unbroken strip of marvelous cities and towns that have never known the ravages of war.
He's not even a kid. He's like 24 or something.
Not from the outside.
Then he's really fucking annoying.
It only knew war in the Civil War, in the War of 1812. And those were wars, but not since America has been developed.
Today, those same financial institutions, now operating under different names, continue to exploit marginalized communities. In the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, millions of people lost their homes due to predatory lending practices by major banks. These institutions targeted low-income families, often from minority communities, offering them subprime mortgages with high interest rates that they could never hope to repay. When the bubble burst, these families were left homeless, while the banks were bailed out by the government. In this way, modern financial institutions have become the new slave masters, keeping people in a state of economic servitude through debt, poverty, and systemic inequality. The tools may have changed, but the underlying power dynamics remain the same. Now let's come to Africa. Is democracy really helping Africa, or is it a tool being used to keep us in chains?
Demos gratis. Democracy means the rule not of the people, but the rule of the devil. Democracy. So when they say we want democracy in Africa, we want the rule of the devil, not the rule of the people. They have never wanted the rule of the people.
Africa is often portrayed as a continent in need of saving by the West. Western nations and international organizations like the United Nations, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, promote democracy as the key to Africa's development. But behind this facade of goodwill lies a darker truth. Democracy, as it's being imposed on Africa, is just another form of control. Since the end of colonialism, African nations have struggled to build their own systems of governance. But every time...
We basically make wars, make money, and basically lie about everything. The United States is a straight up criminal organization.
From Western influence, it faces economic sanctions.
But the United States of America Corporation is our fucking business.
And in some cases, outright military intervention. The West uses democracy as a weapon, pushing African countries to adopt political systems that serve Western interests rather than the interests of the African people. Take, for example, the role of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. These institutions offer loans to African nations, but with strict conditions attached. Countries are forced to implement austerity measures, privatize public services, and open up their markets to foreign corporations. These policies often lead to widespread poverty, as essential services like healthcare and education become inaccessible to the poor. Meanwhile, foreign corporations swoop in to exploit Africa's natural resources, leaving little for the local population. Even worse, when African leaders try to resist these measures, they are often labeled as dictators or human rights abusers. The West then uses this narrative to justify regime change, either through economic pressure or direct intervention. This has happened time and time again, from Libya to Zimbabwe to the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Western powers install puppet governments that are willing to play by their rules, ensuring that Africa remains a source of cheap labor and raw materials. But democracy, as it's been sold to Africa, is not the answer. It's a system designed to keep African nations dependent on Western aid, loans, and approval. The true path to freedom lies in rejecting the Western model of governance and creating systems that reflect Africa's unique cultural and historical context.
They want the rule of a few to subjugate the masses, so that the few can live in luxury as bloodsuckers of the poor.
Please don't kill me. Please, take the phone, take my laptop, they're in my backpack. All the files are on there.
Democracy.
I don't have another copy, I swear.
It's the only game in town
He didn't even
now.
tell me his name. He's like a big, scary guy.
Democracy.
And he just wanted to split the
And
bill.
like it's written, I think, in the book of Jeremiah,
I don't know. It wasn't even
Mr.
written.
Bush can say,
That's all I know.
as it's written there, thy citizen queen,
Kill me?
and shall see no sun.
If democracy is being used as a weapon to control African nations, what can we do to break free? The first step in breaking free from the cycle of control is recognizing the illusion for what it is. Africa doesn't need Western-style democracy to succeed. It needs systems that are tailored to the continent's diverse cultures, histories, and values. This means rejecting the loans and aid packages that come with strings attached. Africa is rich in natural resources, and those resources should be used to benefit the African people, not foreign corporations. By taking control of its own economy, Africa can build a future where prosperity is shared and wealth remains in the hands of the people. This also means investing in education, healthcare, and infrastructure, not through foreign loans, but through the wealth that Africa already possesses. Countries like Botswana have shown that it is possible to use natural resources, such as diamonds, to build a thriving economy without falling into the debt trap set by the West. Botswana has one of the highest levels of economic growth in Africa, thanks to its careful management of its resources and its commitment to self-sufficiency. At the same time, African nations must reject the cultural and religious impositions that have been forced upon them. For too long, Africa has been told that it must adopt Western values and systems of governance in order to be modern. But Africa's strength lies in its diversity. It's time for African nations to reclaim their cultural heritage, their spiritual traditions, and their political independence. This isn't about rejecting progress. It's about rejecting a system that was never meant to serve us. the West version of democracy is not the only way, and it's certainly not the best way for Africa. It's time for African nations to create systems that work for them, not against them. Now that you know the truth, can you continue believing in democracy as it's been sold to you? Are you still convinced that your mind is free, or have you realized the chains that bind your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section. After seeing the manipulation behind the system, do you still trust those who promote democracy as a path to liberation? Do you
Nope.
want to watch more videos like this?
Nope, I don't. Not,
so,
because when you look at the people that we are actually trusting in, they ain't supposed to have no fucking trust because they fooled us with just a 5-word program. Because you ain't supposed to believe shit, understand shit, have faith in shit, and hope for shit. You're supposed to be holding somebody responsible for what they supposed to know how to do some shit if they supposed to be the ones that's running the shit. We can't be stupid to the facts that some motherfuckers telling us bullshit that don't make no sense to having facts. Because one thing about the truth makes sense for true change, and the truth always have facts because the truth don't never run no game. Because it is what it is. Once you realize you was born a part of dog. You was born to tell the fucking truth, not be lying like you do because you was taught to. But it is what it is. Once you realize who's lying to who, but the truth is the truth. I can't make you know what you need to know. And I feel bad when I gotta remind you of what you're supposed to do. Already you supposed to know how to think.